Yuriorkis Gamboa versus Darley's Perez. Gamboa, I know he spent some time in the Mayweather camp. Before he signed to 50 Cent's TMT promotional outfit, he was inside the Mayweather camp for quite a while. And you can see the influence of the Mayweather camp on his style. Right? He's trying to shoulder roll a little bit. He's trying to be a bit slick now. He's trying to box, a bit more conservatively now than we're accustomed to seeing. Obviously in his last fight against Perez, he was hurt and whatnot in that fight. Dropped, if I remember rightly, he was dropped in that fight. And he's been dropped in previous fights before, like against God, what's the guy's name, man? The guy that beat Salido. Yeah, the guy that beat Guerrero. Salido. So he's quite reckless normally, Gamboa. But obviously we know he's talented. He's very fast. He can punch. Very good punch variety and all that kind of stuff. But the problem with him has always been defensive lapses. He's reckless, leaves himself open, and what have you. But he is very talented. He's got power. He's got speed. He's got coordination and all that kind of stuff. But he's just always needed to tighten up his defense. And in this fight, he tried to address that. And again, the commentators, I thought, at least the UK commentators, was terrible. They was wanting him to be the old Gamboa. But to be honest with you, although I do like, the explosive, hard-punching, risk-taking Gamboa, at the same time, I want to see him making defensive improvements. And he has to learn defense properly before he can incorporate it into his normal style. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like when Customado used to train Mike Tyson, he used to put him in the ring against welterweights in sparring. And the welterweights would throw punches at Tyson and Tyson wasn't allowed to throw punches back. You understand what I'm saying? And that was to get him used to pulling off defensive maneuvers. That was practice. So he became comfortable pulling off defensive maneuvers. Right? So it became second nature to him. So he didn't have to think about it. So it just came naturally to him. And I think that's what Gamboa has to do. If he's going to, improve his defense to the point where he needs to, as much as he needs to, then he's gonna need little fights like this where he just works on his defense and staying out of danger and all those kind of things. Especially now he's moving up in weight. So, it wasn't the most exciting Gamboa performance. It's not really what we're used to, but I think it's a step in the right direction, personally. For his own career development. Obviously, for excitement, it'd be better if he was the old Gamboa. But for his career development as a fighter, I think that he's doing the right thing, trying to incorporate little bits of defense. I'm not 100% sold on the whole Philly shell, shoulder roll, Mayweather style defense that he was trying to pull off in this fight. I'm not really sure if that's going to work for him because of his body type. Yeah, I think a lot of the time when it comes to boxing styles, a lot of it is down to body type. What type of body, body type you have. And Gamboa, he's not like a Mayweather or Adrian Broner, guys who have long arms. Do you get what I'm saying? Guys who have, especially Mayweather's got quite a slender, lean body, broad shoulders, long arms. And, because he's got those big long arms, he can hide behind his shoulder very effectively. He can keep you at a certain range with that very, very long reach that he's got. Gamboa don't have that. He's got short arms. He's got a body type. So I think one of the commentators mentioned it in one of his previous fights, and it's true. He's got a body type pretty much identical to Mike Tyson. If you look at his muscle, structure, his bone structure and his muscle structure in his body, his neck shape and all that kind of stuff is very similar to Mike Tyson, almost identical. It's like a mini version of Tyson, the way that he's built. And Tyson, for a guy that's 5'10", he had very short arms. He had a 72-inch reach, at least for, a black athlete. Black, people tend to have longer arms than most other races in general. Obviously, there are black people that have short arms, and Tyson was one of them. He had short arms for a black fighter, for his height. And Gamboa was like that as well. He's a short-armed guy, which is one of the things which allows him to be so quick. Yeah, that's why he's able to get these tremendous combinations of hooks off, because of those short arms. Right? He's not trying to swing around some big clumsy orangutan arms. You get what I'm saying? So, like I say, I'm not 100% sold on the Philly shell style for Gamboa. I think he'd just be better served keeping his hands up more. You know, using his legs to jump in and out, keep his hands up, use a jab. You know, more like a little Holyfield. Do you get what I'm saying? Because he's got the legs to do that, like a little Holyfield, bouncing around, popping a jab in and out. You know what I mean? I think that's just my personal opinion. You know, I think that type of style would suit him more rather than this Philly shell thing, because he don't really have the reach. I don't think, to pull that kind of thing off that successfully. But you know, we'll see, man. We'll see how his career develops. But yeah, the fight itself against Perez, you know, pretty nondescript fight. He won it easily, no problems. Perez just couldn't deal with the speed, the movement, or anything really. Even though he did look the naturally bigger man, he was taller and everything like that. But yeah, you know, he goes on, and we'll see what he can do at 135 pounds. There's some pretty decent fighters there. Obviously, Vasquez is there, Burns is there, Richard Abrill's there, Hank Lundy's there. You know, there's quite a few fighters at 135, so we'll see what he can do. Anyway, on to Erislandy Lara versus Alfredo Angulo. Now, this was an intriguing fight. You know, for a long time, people have been talking about Angulo not being the same after he came out of, you know, custody, the detention center that he was in over the immigration issue. People saying in his last couple fights he's not been the same. Well, first and foremost, in this fight against Erislandy Lara, he was the same. This was the old Angulo. He was relentless. He was strong. He kept coming forward. He wouldn't leave Lara alone. From the opening bell, he was on him. You know what I'm saying? And Angulo was, you know, he was the old Angulo. He's a crude fighter. He's rugged. He's rough, but he's very strong. He hits hard. He's determined. He's tough. You know, so he's difficult to deal with when a guy's just on your case like that, 24/7. You know, 3 minutes of every round, every second of every minute. You know, you're gonna have something special to keep him off. So he's never an easy guy to fight, Alfredo Angulo. And I know that he lost to Kirtland, but he punched himself out. He punched himself out against Kirtland, if you remember. He dropped Kirtland within the first few seconds of the fight, and he literally did you know, he punched himself out. And that's really what cost him the fight. He just expended all his energy thinking he could get Kirtland out of there like Ashida did, and it backfired on him. You know, kind of like Mike Jones did against Soto Karass. He just in the first fight, he just punched himself out too early. But you know, in this fight, he paced himself a lot better. Obviously, he didn't really catch. He did catch Erislandy Lara. He dropped him a couple times. Lara was down in the 4th and in the 9th. And Angulo did try and get Lara, did try to finish him off, but Lara was very slick, and you know, he just moved this way and that, and he did just enough to avoid Angulo's follow-ups. Lara was hurt when he got dropped, but it wasn't that badly hurt to the point where he was, you know, incoherent or you know, he was out of it. You know, his legs was fine when he got back up, pretty much fine, and he was able to continue and box his way back into the fight and actually win the remaining parts of the rounds. You know, in the rounds where he got dropped. So, you know, Angulo's performance, apart from the ending, I guess, was pretty good by his standards. You know, for the kind of fighter that he is, he was pretty good. As far as Lara goes, Lara don't like being under pressure. You know, in terms of a fighter coming at him like that, like the way Angulo did. He was very uncomfortable under pressure, extremely uncomfortable. You know, some fighters, you take a prime James Toney, he's absolutely 100% comfortable under pressure. It don't bother him, it don't faze him, he loves it. Yeah, he's going to lay back on the ropes, he's going to, you know, take your pressure and he's going to counter you to death. Erislandy Lara don't have that type of ability, or at least he didn't show it in this fight against Alfredo Angulo because he was very wary of Angulo's power. I have seen Lara once or twice in fights, you know, fighting guys on the inside. He can fight on the inside a little bit, but in this fight it was obvious from the beginning that he didn't want no parts of Angulo on the inside. And it was a wise move because when Angulo did catch him, obviously he was able to hurt him. So Lara was doing the right thing by, you know, staying away. At certain points, Angulo actually turned southpaw in order to get an angle to land his punches. His left hook in particular was the one which dropped Lara, I believe, both times. So yeah, Lara, it was a jittery performance. He was very nervous, but for the most part, I thought Lara won most of the rounds. A lot of people had this close. I believe some people had Angulo ahead. But Angulo wasn't really landing clean headshots. Very few clean headshots throughout the fight. Apart from in the rounds where he got knocked down, where he knocked Lara down, he wasn't really landing clean headshots. He was landing a lot of good body shots. But in boxing, surely you have to score headshots as you know, more valuable or more important than body shots. You know, and Lara was landing quite a few clean headshots, as you see, even before the fight ended the way that it did. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Angulo's face was getting busted up. Lara was touching him quite regularly with the left hand, with jabs and all those kind of things, combinations. He was touching him with little right hooks as well. If you notice, Lara was catching it. When Angulo got close, Lara was catching Angulo quite a lot with little sneaky right hooks. And yeah, to me, Lara won the majority of the rounds. He won the majority of the rounds, and I had him ahead. I can't remember exactly off the top what my scorecard was, but I definitely had him ahead going into the 10th. I definitely had him ahead. And like I say, he wasn't comfortable under pressure. He didn't like it, but he was coping with it. He was coping with it well enough, and he was doing enough to win the rounds. And then obviously in the 10th round, he caught Angulo with a left. I believe it was a left. And Angulo's face was already kind of busted up. But this particular left that caught him apparently did his eye some serious damage. Possibly fractured his orbital bone. And Angulo's eye swelled up immediately. I mean, it was massive swelling, terrible swelling on his eye. And Angulo turned around and quit. He said, I can't take it. The pain is too much. And he quit. You know, I ain't going to judge him. I wasn't in there. I didn't feel that pain. So I can't really comment on, you know, whether he's a quitter or not or this or that. I do know that other fighters may have carried on. You know, there are fighters out there tough enough, or, you know, some might say crazy enough to carry on in the same situation. But Angulo was like, nah, man, allow it. You get me? I ain't getting hit on this injury right here. This is painful enough as it is. So, you know, he said no mas and go out to fight. And Lara, I think Lara was probably going to win on points anyway. I mean, we don't know. It could have been a Cotto Margarito situation down the stretch. But I don't know. I think he looked in good enough shape, and I think he probably would have won on points anyway. A lot of people are criticizing Lara's performance, but this is one particular style. You know, this is one particular style. He did look uncomfortable in there. He did get dropped a couple times. But like I say, he ain't going to fight that many people that are like Angulo. All right? Even if he fought Canelo Alvarez. Alvarez ain't like Angulo. Alvarez might be a better fighter than Angulo, right? When you take all things into consideration. But he don't do what Angulo does. Yeah, he ain't going to pressure you for 3 minutes of every round and be on your case constantly. He ain't going to do that. You know? I don't think that Lara will be under as much. I don't think he'd feel as uncomfortable in a fight against Alvarez as he did against Angulo, right? Because Alvarez don't pressure you as relentlessly as Angulo does. In fact, the same goes for Lara against Mayweather. I think Lara has got a better chance of beating Mayweather than anyone else at 154 right now, right? Or any of the top guys at 154. There may be a few guys coming through that might have a good chance of beating Floyd at the weight. But I personally think just based on styles, because in boxing it's all about styles. Yeah, forget about who beat who and all that kind of stuff. It's all about which style beats which style. Like Dwyer always likes to say, it's rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, and I think if there's one style that would have a very good chance of beating Floyd Mayweather at 154, it's Erislandy Lara's style. Because he's got a very long reach, much longer reach than Floyd. Floyd ain't never fought no one, a southpaw with such a long reach, physically stronger than him, you know, taller, bigger than him. He ain't never fought no one like that. So you can talk about Zab Judah and DeMarcus Cooley. Those guys are not Erislandy Lara. They're smaller than him. They don't have the reach. They don't have the punching power. They don't have the strength. You know, Lara's very good defensively. The only time he really got caught clean was the 2 times when he got dropped. All right, so I think, you know, just based on styles, he would be the guy at 154 that would have the best chance, at least out of the top guys, he'd have the best chance of beating Floyd Mayweather. And I would actually put a bet on him to beat Floyd Mayweather if that fight actually did happen at 154, if Floyd manages to get past Canelo Alvarez, which I think he probably will. So yeah, but, you know, put him back in there with Angulo and it's going to be a tough fight again. You know, put him back in there with Marty Rosian, it's going to be a tough fight for him. Those pressure guys are going to give him problems. But put him in there with a technical boxer where he can take his time and do his thing. Even a guy like Austin Trout, you know, you'd think that Lara's going to have a lot easier time against a guy like Trout than he had against Angulo. You know, because Trout ain't going to put you under pressure like that. He ain't got the power like that. You understand what I'm saying? So, yeah, I thought that it was far from a perfect performance. He was definitely uncomfortable in there, but he did what he had to do, and he won. He pretty much won ugly in the end. You know, he won ugly, and he did his thing. So, you know, we'll have to see him against some different styles and, you know, see how he copes against more technical boxers, and I think he'll cope very well. So yeah, leave your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you felt about all of these two fights, Gamboa and Lara. Obviously the Cuban connection right there. Let me know how you felt about this. Leave your comments in the comment section below. This is Hatman. I'm out.